This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
So here's the scene. It's just after 4 a.m. on November 13, 2022, in Moscow, Idaho. And 4 University of Idaho students are brutally stabbed to death in their off-campus rental home. The kind of story that instantly breaks the internet and sends every amateur sleuth into overdrive. No witnesses, no murder weapon, just 4 young lives taken. A town in panic, and police with the pressure of 1,000 Redditors breathing down their necks. And yet, out of that chaos, they zero in on one guy. Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student in criminology, because of course he is. Now, Kohberger hasn't been convicted. He's still presumed innocent, allegedly, and all that legal jazz. But let's talk about the evidence that has prosecutors convinced he didn't just study criminal behavior, he lived it. The first eyebrow raiser? His phone. Or more specifically, what it wasn't doing the night of the murders. According to the affidavit, Kohberger's cell phone went dark for 2 critical hours during the exact time of the killings. Like it just took a nap? That's either some Olympic-level bad timing or someone trying to go full Mission Impossible. Prosecutors say this intentional silence is a massive red flag, because unless you're hiking the Himalayas or dodging your ex, who the hell turns off their phone for 2 hours in the middle of the night? Then there's the Hyundai Elantra, white, 2015 or so, a car that became the FBI's new best friend after surveillance footage caught one circling the murder scene multiple times in the early morning hours. The make, model, and time frame line up with Kohberger's vehicle. Police tracked that Elantra from Idaho to Pennsylvania like it was leaving a breadcrumb trail of terrible decisions. And just to drive the point home, pun very much intended security footage shows the car heading back toward Washington State University, where Kohberger lived, right after the murders. Still not convinced? Let's talk DNA. Because as it turns out, our guy may have left behind a little souvenir at the scene. A knife sheath. Not just any sheath, but one reportedly found next to one of the victims in the same bed. A single male DNA sample was recovered from the snap. The lab ran it through a genealogical database using investigative genetic genealogy, and surprise, a familial match came back to Kohberger later. A direct sample was allegedly pulled from trash outside his parents' Pennsylvania home, and boom, a near-perfect match to the sheath. If this is a frame job, it's a damn elaborate one, involving cross-country trash collecting. Oh, and the creepy cherry on top? Cell tower data allegedly places Kohberger's phone near the victim's house on at least 12 occasions before the murders. Like a serial window shopper who just couldn't commit, prosecutors believe these drive-bys weren't coincidence. They were pre-murder recon missions. Because nothing says, I'm not obsessed, like visiting someone a dozen times without saying a word. Now toss in some good old-fashioned behavioral oddities. The guy reportedly changed his license plate shortly after the murders. That's subtle. He allegedly cleaned his car inside and out, including the seats, floor mats, and trunk, which doesn't exactly scream, just your normal Tuesday. Investigators also noted he wore surgical gloves when taking out the trash at 4 a.m. in Pennsylvania. Either he's the world's most cautious germaphobe, or he's really into not leaving DNA around after driving across the country following a quadruple homicide. You pick. But wait, there's more. According to his WSU classmates, Kohberger grew increasingly twitchy after the murders. There were reports that he stopped showing up to class, that his once annoying tendency to over-participate in criminology debates suddenly evaporated. Like the guy who won't shut up at trivia night who suddenly forgets what state he lives in. Something changed. Oh, and then there's the psychological rabbit hole. Kohberger once posted anonymously on Reddit about his disassociation, inability to feel emotion, and detachment from reality. Look, we don't diagnose people based on old internet posts. But it does raise questions about motive, mental state, and whether this was about more than violence. Was it about control, dominance, proving some twisted superiority fantasy? The prosecution thinks so. They've made it clear this was a targeted attack, that Kohberger allegedly stalked the victims, watched them, and then acted with horrifying precision. That he had no connection to them, but studied their routines like a term paper, and just maybe believed he could commit the perfect crime. But here's the part that really chills. This wasn't messy, rage-fueled chaos. Whoever did this moved quickly, left almost nothing behind, and got in and out of a house with 6 people inside. That takes planning, cold, calculating planning. And prosecutors say that matches what we know about Kohberger, an academic obsessed with understanding how killers get away with it. Allegedly. June 2025, Kohberger's defense team asked the court for more time, citing the overwhelming volume of evidence, including 68 terabytes of discovery. That's the equivalent of about 68,000 hours of Netflix or one man who watched Mindhunter a little too closely. They also argued that recent media coverage, particularly a Dateline episode, could prejudice potential jurors. The judge wasn't thrilled, calling the case a hamster wheel of delay tactics. For now, the trial remains set for August. As it stands, the evidence mountain isn't just steep, it's Everest. We've got digital forensics, vehicle surveillance, behavioral profiling, and DNA with a genetic family tree. But the defense will no doubt go hard on challenging how all that evidence was gathered. They'll question the legality of the IgG match. They'll argue cell tower data isn't pinpoint accurate. They'll ask whether the knife sheath DNA could have been transferred. And yes, they're already floating the possibility of an alternate suspect. But here's what matters. The public isn't stupid. They can smell a distraction when they see one. They know the difference between a conspiracy and a paper trail. And unless the defense can tear every link in that chain apart, the prosecution may be walking into court with one of the tightest digital to DNA cases in recent memory. Kohberger wanted to study the minds of criminals. If the evidence holds up in court, he may get a first-hand look at what it feels like to be on the other side of the glass. Not as the analyst, but as the subject, allegedly.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.